The Hunting Collective is presented by Element.
I guess I grew up on an older road.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Hunting Collective. I'm of course Benjamin Patrick O'Brien, and I'm joined by Philip T. Engineer. Say hello, Philip.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
I don't know. Do you think episode numbers matter? Because I always struggle to remember them.
I think it's fun to list it off every week. It's kind of like writing a little tally on your prison wall. Just one every day. Pretty soon it starts to look pretty impressive when they stack up.
Yeah, we've been here a long time. A long time. I remember back in 2018. I remember those days. We have a special guest here joining us, but Phil was a little bit... he was just a little bit verklempt by this. Like, he just didn't know what to do. He didn't want this person to join us. I think it's because of our connection, and we'll learn why in a minute. But Phil, before we bring this gentleman on, are you upset? Are you okay?
No,
I was figured out your emotions.
You're definitely stretching the truth a little bit here. You said, "Hey, is this person joining us?" Or like, should we wait for them? And I said, "Who are you talking about?" I didn't read the calendar invite, and I didn't know anyone else was coming, so I was a little taken aback. And then I thought about it. I was like, "Well, this intro is the kind of one-on-one time for us to catch up, and it's our special little moment every week." And we have someone else here today.
Yeah. And that's Ford Van Fossan of the Van Fossans, of the Trap Van Fossans of the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Say hello, Ford.
Howdy, y'all.
How are you doing? Now, you're in Ketchum. You work for First Lite, but you are of Maryland. You are of a Maryland stock.
I am a proud Marylander. It's an important part of my identity, as I think anyone around you can tell me here.
You aren't wearing. You said you were going to bring like Maryland boxers and different things like that, but you have not done that.
Well, as you began the show just then, I was thinking about running to get my Old Bay and to put it on the Squadcast screen here. Maybe a flag in the background, as much red, yellow, and gold as I could get in here.
Yeah, well, we're going to start a segment called Talkin' Maryland, and it's only when you come on that we're going to do it. And I've done a little research as to famous people from Maryland. Do you know any famous people that you know that are from Maryland? Like people that you're proud of to say, man, they're from Maryland too.
Besides Ben O'Brien?
Yeah, I wasn't on the list in Wikipedia, so fuck them. But I mean, moving on. Is there anybody?
Yeah.
Is there anybody sports like the people you idolize that are from Maryland?
Historically, we've got two right from around me. Harriet Tubman, slightly to the south, and Frederick Douglass, also from Talbot County, same county as me. Those are kind of two, I feel like, personal heroes that come right to mind. Less of a sports guy. I'm trying to think of like Cal Ripken, obviously, kind of universal. Easy. Although I don't even know if he's from Maryland, to be honest.
Dude, he is. You're blowing my research. I only have like 4 people left on the list that I made.
Did I already hit 3 of them?
Yeah, I already hit 3 of the 7 people on my list. Did you know that Cisco was, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel here, but Cisco, author of the Thong Song, also from Maryland. Did you know that?
Makes me proud.
Yep. Nancy Pelosi, also from Maryland.
I did know that. That's a more mixed.
Good friend of the show.
A polarizing figure. Yeah, exactly. She's been on a bunch, right?
Yeah. Actually, a real friend of the show, David Hasselhoff, who's been on. He was from Maryland.
He's been on.
He's been on. Of course, Cal Ripken Jr., Michael Phelps. We all know Michael Phelps.
Yep.
And then John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth is from Maryland.
Also a polarizing figure. I think we can just call him a negative figure.
Yeah, I would say not, whether conspiracy theories aside, not great. And then closing it off with actor William H. Macy, who I think is from Cumberland, Maryland, which is close to where I grew up hunting. I always heard that story. I'm not double checking any of these. I'm believing Wikipedia, but anyway, Maryland is really turns out some of the greatest Americans. Phil, would you agree based on this list?
I mean, based on Cisco and William H. Macy alone, I mean, I'm sold.
Fargo? I mean, come on, man. He's in Fargo, right?
Don't we have Edgar Allan Poe too?
Yeah, but I feel like people know that. You feel like people know that?
Well, maybe just not. The Ravens, right? That's why we have the football team, the Ravens, is, quote the Raven. I think.
Close to Raven, yeah, and the mascot is Poe. Yeah, I mean, then his grave, I feel like, is right there by the stadium, a couple blocks north of the stadium. So yeah, all that stuff. Now, this is a part of the. Is this entertaining to you, Phil? That you're not from Maryland? I don't even know where you're from. I think like California or something, Canada.
California or Canada,
whatever, some other country, one of those two. But is this entertaining to you as a regional segment?
It is, because I know absolutely nothing about Maryland aside from Edgar Allan Poe and Cal Ripken Jr. So,
Great.
I'm learning a lot today, honestly.
Great.
I wouldn't blame you there, Phil. It's sort of Maryland. I feel like it's a very small place, but Marylanders, such as Ben and myself, are very proud of it and like to talk about it a lot. Though most people seem to associate it as something just outside Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
there's a lot to it.
Well, they call it America in miniature because as Ford and I grew up on different sides of the tracks. You grew up on the Eastern Shore. I grew up in Western Maryland, which is basically Eastern West Virginia, Southern Pennsylvania. So but they call it American miniature because it has all this topography that goes from mountains where I grew up all the way to beautiful beaches like the ones in my favorite town, Ocean City. Have you ever been to Ocean City? Lord?
Of course I've been to Ocean City.
It's a serious question. Why are you laughing? It's a serious question.
Oh, it's just a place, man. It is a place.
Did you ever have a senior week in high school?
That was huge. But I did not actually partake, unfortunately.
I did, and I
regret that.
I got kicked out of 2 different hotels. And I'll tell this story. My dad will like this story. I got a series of traffic tickets when I was like 18. I was driving fast, and my dad, being the lovely man that he is, drove me down to senior week, and I had a court date for those traffic tickets in the middle of senior week. He picked me up in the middle of the drunken debauchery that was senior week, drove me back an hour and a half to go to court, and then drove me back and dropped me off at senior week in the middle of Ocean City. So yeah, I don't know why I told that story, but now you guys know a little more about me. And so that's my favorite town. Do you have a favorite town? We were just talking about Chestertown. Would that qualify as your favorite town?
Old Chestertown's definitely high on the list. Man, there's just a lot of great little towns on the Eastern Shore. And in Maryland throughout. But really, honestly, man, I haven't spent much time in your neck of the woods, to be honest. We did a middle school ski trip to Wisp, which is way out in sort of the little triangle of Western Maryland. And that could be the only time I've really been out there, to be honest. But it is, to your point, a whole different world.
If Maryland was like a pan, I lived in the handle. And I feel like you lived on the end, the very end, the other side of it, on the other side of the surface there.
And to your point, I think culturally quite different. Western Maryland trends more West Virginia, Northern Virginia, Western PA, whereas I would say the Eastern Shore kind of trends more coastal Virginia, almost Carolina, I feel like.
Different languages, different accents. Yeah, different accents.
United, though, by water, certainly.
Of
right?
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And
now,
a
couple things. We went through place. My favorite beer growing up was Yuengling and Natty Bo, Natural Bohemian.
Mm-hmm.
Was there like a different thing over there where you were from?
Well, the only one I would add to that list is the 10-ounce Budweiser, right? The tenner.
Yeah. Yep, the tenner.
Which is a Maryland tradition of, to me at least, completely obscure origins. But in Maryland, at least on the Eastern Shore, you can buy 10-ounce Budweisers. I believe they figured that there's now a premium on just the fact that they're 10 ounces, and they may not even be cheaper than 12-ounce Budweisers. That was certainly a thing. You would alternate between tenners and National Bohemian Lager.
That's right. Yeah.
Generally, if you wanted to get real Maryland.
And I also would say, like in my experience with Bud Light, it's not the ounces that you're drinking that matter. It's really, it's like 1 or 2 ounces ain't going to make you feel any better. You've got to it's like a half dozen tenors that's going to get you there. So I don't know why we are quabbling over certain ounces.
I don't know what the logic was. The excuse commonly growing up was that they stayed colder longer, which is, I guess, really not true. It's just that there's less beer to get warm. But
this is true. All right. Well, before we get to our regular program, Phil, I track how the show's going by Phil's face, and he's flipping a pen around. He's like leaned back in his chair. He does not.
I was looking out the window because the FedEx just came and dropped a package off at my door. So I was trying to remember what it could be. I have no idea. It's exciting times. December is thrilling because packages just show up and you don't know what you ordered. I don't know.
That's a good segue. We got some good stuff coming up, including THC Robes and Sam Soholt of the Public Land Bus. So before we do anything else, though, Old Bay, where you stand on it? I'm supportive of Old Bay. In a way that, like, I've never had a crab. I've never had a blue crab that wasn't smothered in Old Bay. Have you? Like, why would you do that?
Well, I'm sure I've consumed quite a bit of J.O.'s spiced crabs in my life. J.O.'s being, for probably everyone else in the world besides Ben and I right now, sort of a rival traditional Chesapeake seasoning that you would put on steamed blue crabs.
That's true.
But I honestly don't buy into sort of the hipster J.O.'s purist mentality. I do love Old Bay, and I have never steamed crabs with anything else that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like Old Bay's kind of jumped the shark? It's gotten too popular. We need to dial it back? Because
what does jump the shark mean, just to stop you for a second?
It just means too popular, too trendy.
Well, no, that's not what it means.
What's it mean? That's what it means. I'm looking it up.
It's a reference to a Happy Days episode where the show ran so long that they ran out of ideas, and the Fonz went water skiing and jumped over a shark. And that's how you know that, like, all right, they went too far. They don't know what they're doing anymore. It jumped the shark. It went crazy.
Well, color me wrong. Yeah, reach a point at which far-fetched events are included merely for the sake of novelty, indicative of a decline in quality. That was pretty close. No, it wasn't. No, that was way wrong. We're going to cut this out. Phil will cut this out to make me look smart. All right, well, that ruins the whole base segment, Phil. Thanks for that. You ruined everything.
Hey, I'm pretty sure I just taught you something about the late season Happy Days trivia. So you're welcome.
What would be the right term for something that's too trendy? That's off trend.
I don't have anything.
See, yeah, we go back to jump the shark. That's
I can tell you what we got though.
Well, it's not helpful. All right, Ford. Do you feel like there's anything else Maryland that we missed? Because this is really our only chance to do this.
I know, and it feels indulgent. I'd like to talk to you about Maryland all day long, but again, probably 90% of your listeners, probably more than 90% of your listeners, have no interest in Maryland, have never been to Maryland, and so I guess I will say no. I don't have anything else to put forward.
Yeah,
besides that, it's an excellent state that I'm a proud native of.
Yeah, I mean, if people that listen to this don't think most of it is indulgent for me or Phil, then they haven't been paying attention. We're not doing this for you. We're doing this for us. All right, moving on. Phil, do you have a bag of popcorn there you can hold up?
I do. Speaking of different states, I got a package. We got a package from Nebraska last week, Ben.
Yes.
I'll hold up this bag of popcorn. You can kind of explain what's happening here. There's a picture.
It's a beautiful bag of popcorn. I've never had my picture in a bag of popcorn. Luke and Lisa, let the adventure begin. And there's a picture of, I would assume that's Luke and Lisa.
It's a safe bet.
All right. And they're nuzzling each other. They're like nosing each other there on it. What's it say below that? The ingredients? What's the message below?
Oh, that's just the company that made the popcorn.
No, okay. So nothing else of value there.
Shout out to Colby Ridge Popcorn and Gifts out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Head over there for all of your personalized popcorn needs.
Yeah. I mean, is this
the point where we've reached the shark now?
Nope. Ben's got a point. Ben's going somewhere.
We've lost it. No, that is a photo of the two people nuzzling there with their noses. That is Luke and Lisa Reeves. Luke and Lisa Reeves. Now, we've had we've been talking recently, a lot of listeners of the show find different ways to engage in THC. But I think Luke and Lisa found a real way to engage in THC by getting engaged. And it would have been, how long ago was this, Phil? You have a better memory than
Man,
me.
I don't remember.
Like earlier this year, though, right?
It was pre-pandemic for sure.
For sure.
I don't remember if it was if it was 2019 or early 2020, but
yeah, between 12 and 20 months ago. Luke Reeves, a listener of the program, wrote me a Instagram DM and said, "Hey man, I'm about to try to propose to my lady friend. What should I do?" And then I immediately gave him some elaborate advice, some of the best. He said later, he never said this publicly, but to me privately, there's the best advice he's ever received. And then he went and used that advice to propose to his lady friend Lisa. And judging by the popcorn, she said yes, right, Phil?
They got married this last week, a couple weeks ago, on November 21st.
Congratulations. Everybody, you have to clap for that. I mean, come on. A THC wedding. Last week we had a THC pie, and now we have a THC wedding. They came on the show about 6-8 months ago prior to the pandemic, and we talked about everything. But what showed up to the office was a package of gifts. Was there a note or anything like that in there, Phil?
Well, they sent us a wedding. What's this called? The little pamphlet, the wedding program. And they also sent some personalized beer koozies.
Fucking beautiful, man.
Look at
that. Let the adventure begin.
They sent a lot.
Don't have kids. I don't have kids.
I talked to Luke on Instagram. I'm supposed to pass one of these on to Spencer Newharth because Luke knows that he likes to drink a lot of beer. So remind me to do that.
In the hot tub.
Yeah, that's right. Every morning in the hot tub.
He sent me an email too. Luke sent me an email. I'll read it to you, Phil.
Okay,
I know
go ahead.
Don't try not to cry. Well, we actually did it. We finally tied the knot. It seems like 400 years ago when I was first sliding into Ben's DMs to ask for some advice on proposing to a woman who was so far out of my league that my league plays our games during the halftime of her league games. Damn it, if that advice didn't work, Lo, and here we are sitting in our first home together listening to episode 153 as man and wife no longer living in sin. Once again, gentlemen, I have to thank you. I've been forming this strange kind of friendship where I can send Phil cat memes and comment on Ben's stories and know that I've actually had conversation with both of you. I've also formed the same kind of friendship with the man, the myth, the legend, the American dream, Eric Hall. I've sent a fairly large package, thank you, gift to the immediate offices. Hopefully you can share them with everyone else. Thanks again, Luke and Lisa Light. He said, love always and forever. Luke Reeves. Unbelievable. Ford, as a newcomer, does this feel strange to you? Does this feel appropriate?
A lot of questions. A lot of questions come to mind. Principally, how often do you get requests for marital advice on a, what I would call a hunting themed podcast? It seemed like there was no connection to hunting in his question, just sort of, how do I propose to my girlfriend then?
No,
elaborate on that.
I started off by saying wait until early November when things are happening. Get yourself a rattle bag and a grunt tube. No, I think what we're displaying here is that we've built something here that goes well beyond hunting, right, Phil?
Yeah. I mean, Ben talks. He says words into a microphone. People think that they're worthwhile. I still don't understand it, but I'd say, people are engaged with this show beyond hunting.
Beautiful. We had to admit that now. That's going to be hard to live up to. But Luke and Lisa, congratulations. I said earlier, don't have kids, but do what you got to do. Do what you want to do in that regard. I'm just happy for you. I'm feeling real warm. Just like last week, I'm feeling warm this week, thanks to the THC listeners, the THC cult members, as we call them. Ford doesn't know about that either, so he's like, what the
I was going to say, it sounds so complimentary when you call them the cult.
Yeah, no, it's the cult. They like it. I had an email from a guy from Marshall Caldwell, by his name, and he's been listening to back episodes, and we mentioned earlier this year that we would make THC robes for folks who I'm a robe guy. Ford, are you a robe guy?
I used to be a big robe guy. I've kind of moved out of it in the last couple of years, and in fact, my better half has actually taken my robe as her
Taking
own.
it.
Yeah.
That implies there is a problem. Like something happened.
Well, no, I suppose then maybe I used the wrong verb there, but she now wears the robe. Let me put it that way.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, she
She wanted to
wears
wear it.
the
I thought there was like
Yeah.
an inciting incident where she had to just.
No, there wasn't like a battle.
Oh, yeah.
At which point I lost.
Or you just
the
like
robe.
went to the grocery store and she was like, "It's over." No,
yeah.
separate
No,
from the
it
robe.
wasn't. It wasn't really a conflict. In the way, for example, like the taxidermy allocations I've told you about in the living room are.
Yeah. That's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Is that the?
That's
So-
a conflict, I would say, with
Oh,
sort
yeah,
of
for
a,
sure.
a line that moves back and forth, not unlike World War One in the center.
Yes, I've been there. My wife, I'm actually putting together a THC studio in my house, and this is what was my office. And I put a double pedestal mount blacktail, and my wife walks by and she goes, "Really?" Because it's right when you walk in the door, it's the first thing you see. She goes, "Really? Really?" I said, "Yeah, it's beautiful." Not to her.
Yep.
So I'm using up a lot of my cred right there just for that double pedestal mount. But I think it's beautiful.
That would be strong. I would struggle on that front, the double pedestal. I think we really
Hey.
all taxidermy in our home is known as dead stuff, quote unquote, and
Yep.
can fall into any category, be that Euro, I suppose shoulder that don't have any, or hides, all fall into that category. Those sheds do not, because they don't come from a dead animal. We have established that.
Sheds are kind of like bougie and hipster anyway sometimes,
Exactly.
as are
Exactly.
European mounts.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're way off track.
Yeah, where were we going?
Were we ever on a track? THC robes.
Yep.
Marshall is once, and other folks have asked for us to have like a Black Friday thing, and THC robes. I think if this podcast is still going next Black Friday, I promise that we will make THC robes, and we'll have emblazoned on there the logo, and it'll be. I like them to be as big and fluffy as possible, and I like that robe to be just robust and just make. A statement.
I think I would go kind of like an Eddie theme from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm with you.
The Shitters Full Clark edition, so to speak.
Well, speaking of, there's no transition I can make to what we want to talk to Ford about. There's nothing I can do. Speaking of things that you talk to people about, Common Wild is something that is happening at First Lite and in many other companies, and we want to talk to Ford about that. I will just say this: companies that we work with or that we have relationships with here always do things, promotions, things that they do, and they often don't align with the show here, and so we don't talk about them. But this one happens to be pretty damn cool, and it aligns with a lot of the things we talk about in terms of coming together around this here hunting pursuit and fishing and other things, outdoor pursuits in general. So, Ford, do you want to take a break from the silliness and tell people about Common Wild?
Yeah, well, I'm glad it does. I think it riffs off a lot of what y'all talk about on this here podcast. But sort of the idea came about a couple years ago, in sort of these divided, rancorous times. One thing that seems to come through as bipartisan and something we can largely agree on is the great outdoors, right? And we saw that with the Great American Outdoors Act, with the ACE Act, with as different voices as Jane Fonda and Donald Trump Jr. Putting together criticism on Pebble Mine, which ultimately seems to have somehow moved the needle there. And so I think we came to the conclusion that really conservation is truly bipartisan at this time, and we don't have to tell ourselves it is, particularly. And wouldn't it kind of be nice if we could get a number of companies in our space and hopefully from all corners of the outdoor industry, not just fishing and hunting, involved in kind of making a statement about how conservation, how the great outdoors brings us together, and when just about nothing else seems to. And that's kind of where this Common Wild initiative idea was born, in this sort of optimistic but hopefully true vision of conservation as a great uniter.
Yeah, and we see, we talk about our polarized times here and how hard it is to kind of get people to come together around something, no matter what it is. Um, and the example you brought up about the Great American Outdoors Act, not only was it socially and culturally binding in some ways, I mean, it was politically binding because that act itself was and is something that was bipartisan in nature. And so when we think about those things, any effort we can make to foster that connection and really the realization that we aren't as far apart as we might think we are is a good thing. And oftentimes, as you know, when I bring up Patagonia or other companies that are seen as green or progressive, there's a lot of people that want to clap back about their anti-predator hunting stance or whatever that might be. There are plenty of, if we're being honest, things to disagree over. We tend to focus on those a lot, which is fine. We got to find a way to grind those out. But this is a chance. Common Wild, to me, is a chance to focus on what we do agree on.
Yeah, and that's sort of a specific story that comes to mind in that regard. A couple of years ago, Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia, was a featured storyteller at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous. I think it was 2018, if it serves me right. And there was some pushback from BHA members, to your point, along, well, BHA doesn't agree on Patagonia's stance on predator hunting or whatever, a myriad of things for sure. But I thought BHA's response to those folks was measured and effective. And it was something to the lines of, yes, we certainly don't agree on 100 out of 100 things. Maybe we only agree on 72 and a half things out of 100 with Patagonia. But one of those is the protection of wildlife and wild places. And so why would we not work with a powerful ally, so to speak, that shares that common and, I would argue, sort of all-encompassing goal, right? I mean, let's basically put another way, let's put aside our differences on those 6 or 10 issues in the interest of, basically protecting our access, Americans' access to the natural world, right? And that made an impression on the team at First Lite for sure. And I think that helped to inform kind of the vision for this. Because, put another way, I think we can argue about who's snowmobiling where, who's hunting there, who's trail running, bird watching, whatever, when they're in a parking lot paving over the woods we were talking about. I think, it's sort of wait, let's stand back here and look at how much we have in common. We all need the woods. We all have a passion for doing something in the woods. So let's protect them first and iron out sort of the details later.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And part of the thing that we've always talked about on this show about the hunting community itself, if it's not accepting of differing ideas, if it's a monolith in the way that it sees the world, it's never going to grow. It's never going to find social acceptance. It's never going to find cultural acceptance. It's never going to find the place I think it deserves within our nation and our national consciousness. So if we're not able to, if we kick everybody out that thinks that we should ban AR-15s or we should stop shooting wolves, then we're never going to have the kind of broad-based support that we need to do what we do. So folks out there that really want to see an industry getting together saying, hey, this is something we really, we're going to do something to display this. Support of legislation is one thing, but this is another, because commerce is commerce. Companies have to grow. They got to make money. And this is something that is about a little bit more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's largely, this is a fundraiser, to be clear. Practically what we're doing is selling a series of limited release swag, essentially, and 100% of the profits are going to conservation. So a Nalgene, an enamel camp cup, and a cap. But really, I think, honestly, this is more about this message than it is even about fundraising for specific groups, which it will do in a big way and is already doing, I should say. But I almost think that message of conservation as a unifier, especially in these divided times, is almost the most important element of this project.
Absolutely. Well, give people the the rundown of where they go, what they can do, and what the end game is here, so we're clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, firstlite.com, you're going to find links right away to the Common Wild project. But generally speaking, commonwild.org is going to have sort of the comprehensive rundown on the campaign, and it'll have links to all the participating brands from hunting rifles to women's mountain bike apparel that you can get that limited edition Common Wild Camp Cup, Nalgene, and hat at.
So immediately forward, when the Camp Cup and the Nalgene showed up and the hat, my wife stole all of it. All of it.
Good.
She was
That's a good litmus test.
She was drinking wine out of the Camp Cup last night, in fact.
That's the best thing you could have told me about the use of the merchandise, Ben. There isn't Common Wild is not an NGO. It's not a nonprofit. There's no kind of centralized fund. It's more a way, I see the campaign as a way for brands to raise money kind of for the conservation partners they already work with. So, for example, Weatherby, I believe, is given all their funds or all the profits from the project to the Mule Deer Foundation. Nemo is given all the profits from their Common Wild gear to TRCP. So the kind of the agency on where those dollars are going is totally up to the brand, basically. So, kind of depending on who you're buying from, you'll kind of be able to learn more about where those dollars are going specifically, if that makes sense.
It makes all sense, yeah. It's an important thing, and for people to think. Our buddy Brian Callahan always talks about trailhead diplomacy. This is a more commerce related way to get in that, and it's like I said, it's a pretty cool thing. My wife immediately stole it and ran off and filled it with wine and hid in the closet and drank. I mean, again, Luke and Lisa don't have kids. That's what it makes you do. It really does. All right, well, we're gonna get to Sam Soholt. We're going to get to everything from duck stamps to how he came up hunting as a kid to why social media scares both of us in another conversation with our good friend and public land bus guy, Sam Soholt. Enjoy. Sam Soholt, what's up, buddy?
Not much, man. It's good to be back on the podcast.
I know. It's good to see you, man. You look good. You look like you've had a robust fall season.
It's been good. It's typically I can tell how good the season was by how much weight I've lost in my face by the end of November.
Face weight.
Yep.
We should do a contest, a face weight contest before and after for the audience here.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's drastic.
Yeah. I always usually measure it by like scraggliness of beard, although I haven't hunted. I didn't hunt at all in November because of the COVID. But usually if my beard has like one hair that's going north and one that's going west, I feel pretty good about it.
That's a good year.
Your face looks thin. Your face looks. You look like you've been getting after
it's a combo of things. It's not eating all that much and getting up, 4 o'clock every day for the last about 30 days, and sitting in a tree, chasing whitetails, and then also shaving my beard off into a mustache, really trimmed my face down.
I saw that. I didn't like it. I got it.
That's okay. Yeah.
Mustaches are such a hit or miss thing.
Yeah, no, and it's not good on me. I just look exactly like my dad if I shave it.
Nothing wrong with that. Jerry Soholt is a goddamn legend.
Yeah, he is.
He's one of the man.
Yep.
And you've been doing a lot of hunting with him and your brother, right?
Yeah, it's been good. We got to do 2 week-long family trips this year. So, it was great. And it was really fun my dad was able to shoot a deer on both trips, which is, pretty rare, really.
Well, give the, last episode we did, the listeners made me cry because we did like a holiday traditions thing and a lot of people wrote in about their dads. And Mark Kenya was on and we were talking about his dad and I shed a few tears. I'm not scared to admit that shit. And, but your dad, I feel like, needs his own show.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I've been trying to figure out, so I've had this idea for a while, and somebody's probably going to steal it now that I'm going to talk about it on a podcast. But
it's patented. It's patented and protected.
patented,
IP.
yeah.
It's got IP protection.
It's trademarked for
sure.
Yep. No, I want to do just a kind of either weekly or every couple weeks, like kind of a segment focusing on conservation, like and what's happening with different conservation groups and what they're up to. And I thought that he would be a good host of that show for YouTube. And so I'm kind of working out the details on that with him to see if he would want to do that. But
well, I'm all for that. We had a really emotional like father-son hunt origin story Thanksgiving time last week.
Nice.
So what was it was growing up, like what was your thing with Jerry and your brother?
Yep.
Like what was it like? Because you guys have extended that. I mean, you guys are, hunting your asses off together during a pandemic, which is beautiful in and of itself. But I mean, how'd that all get going?
Yeah. So our dad grew up in northern Wisconsin in a hunting family. So our grandpa hunted, all the time and shot a lot of deer. And legend has it that he was just a hell of a shot. So they lived in northern Wisconsin. This is just a story, real quick. So they lived in northern Wisconsin, and so it's really thick woods, So if you're going to shoot something, like you got to be quick on the draw. If you catch a glint of antler or whatever. And
it's pronounced tick woods.
Yeah, tick. Yeah,
woods up in the tick woods.
Super thick. Well, then there was a stint where the whole family moved to Carrington, North Dakota, and my grandpa ran the Farmers Union plant or whatever right there in Carrington, and there was it's wide open in North Dakota, so they were going to do a deer drive, and there's a group of guys, and I think it was 9 or 10 guys in the group, and they were going to drive this field and shelter belts and stuff. And well, they put my grandpa on then because they had heard that he was a good shot, and they said, well, a lot of us won't get shots at deer, so if you have opportunities at shooting bucks, like just keep shooting. This is back in the 50s. And so my grandpa, being a guy that had lived his whole life shooting deer in the Northwoods, all of a sudden deer start running out the end of the shelter belt, and he shot 9. And when he told the story, he's like, oh, it was all easy shots. It was like between 90 and 150 yards, and sure, they're running, but it's in the wide open. So he shot 9, and he's like, and came to find out that the guys weren't really all that happy that I filled all their tags because they didn't expect me to do that. But yeah, when he lived in North Dakota, he shot a deer that it's probably scores in the 170s, maybe low 180s. But more impressively, they weighed it after it had hung or gutted and hung for 3 days, and it was 375 pounds.
Whoa.
Yep. So they figured it to be 415 pounds-ish on the hoof.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's like 3 Texas hill country deer put together.
Yeah. Just
or 4 maybe.
Giant. We have a photo of it. That he had shot 2 other bucks that morning, and there's a photo of that deer hanging with 2 other really nice deer from the big forklift of a tractor, and it's just giant, just enormous.
Well, when we share this podcast out, you'll have to send me that because I want to see.
Yeah,
I want to see a 400-pound deer hanging.
Yeah. So then, so he grew up hunting, or my dad grew up hunting in Wisconsin. My dad and uncle, and then when we were kids, my dad was still archery hunting. But when we were all born, obviously time is a little bit harder to come by, and archery hunting isn't really conducive to spending time with family. So we were born in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and we had transitioned basically completely into bird hunting because upland and waterfowling was a way easier opportunity to have the whole family out together, spending time, whether it be in a blind or in a boat or whatever. Everyone's right there, and you can talk the whole time and share the experiences. Mm-hmm. And so from when I was really little, way too young, probably 5 or 6 years old, I was walking pheasant fields. And then when I was 10 or so, we started duck hunting and, started really dove into that. And that's all we did. And then, as Josh and I got older, we both transitioned into big game stuff. And then our dad, Jerry, got back into it heavily. And we've been chasing deer with a bow since, since he got back into it in about 2010.
Yeah.
So,
There's no like, I feel like with Jerry, there might be like some hidden Woodstock story or something that you got tucked away.
I'm trying
Some
to think.
like this time, like a bar fight story or some kind of.
Oh,
like,
I've got, there's definitely those. Yeah.
I feel like Jerry, his legend may grow in this podcast. I feel.
Yeah. I mean, a quick bar fight story. He went to a wedding in Winnipeg, and him and all the groomsmen went into a bar, and this was in the height of Vietnam. This was back in the 70s and 70s. Anyway, go into the bar, and one of my dad's buddies asked the guy, "Are you from Winnipeg?" And he said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you from the States?" And he goes, "Yeah." And the guy just clocked him, and then the whole bar broke out in a fight, and they had to fight their way out just because they were from the States. So, but
Jerry don't play. Jerry probably got in there and whooped some Canadian.
Oh yeah, I mean he was a college football player, 6'3", 250 pounds at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, not to offend anybody from Canada, but
no,
I mean,
no,
you guys can't. They are hockey. You can't say they can't fight because that's one of the things they're actually good at up there.
Yeah. Well, they can fight, and then they're still friends at the end of it.
That's right. Come on, eh? We have the Canadian contingent of THC is a vocal and angry contingent often because we slight them sometimes. But we love you guys. We love you up there.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Hopefully, you guys can. I always suggest things that you should do. I think, hey Sam, you should do this. You should do a show with the three of you guys hunting together. Boom.
Oh yeah, we should. Yeah, that
really
should be a show of its own.
The Soholt boys, call it that.
Mm-hmm.
You get like you already have. You don't even need the vehicle. I was going to say get a vehicle. We already got that.
Oh yeah,
you got the van.
We have two of them. Got the van.
You got the bus.
We're set.
What's I'd like to see you do a public land e-bike.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's off. Maybe that's probably a little bit off brand.
Well,
maybe
I have an e-bike. We actually got a couple of them this year, but a lot of the places that we hunt, you can't bike in. So it's been hard.
Stays on the back of the van.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, how's the van going? We need a van update. We probably talked about the van during Quarantine Cast way back when we thought life eventually the pandemic would end. Remember when we were like, oh, September will probably be over.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
No.
But you did spend all fall in the van. Last time I was in the van, I slept on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, not the ground. I slept on the metal flooring of the van, which is pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
All in all.
I think there was still carpet in it at that time.
I think it might have had some sort of covering over the metal flooring of the van.
Yeah.
Fond memories.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like whatever that'd be, just over a year ago. That was the end of October.
Yep.
That we were out in Montana chasing critters around in it when it was still blue and still, nothing had been done on the inside. And then the podcast that we did in March, early in the pandemic, I'm trying to think that all we had done, we had ripped the guts out of it and we had got it wrapped. I think that was the only two things that we had done. And so now it's completely built out. Like the side doors open up into like a main hull compartment so you can do a gear throw. And then the back is when you open the back doors, you have a decked drawer system. And then on top of that is a cargo glide with a foam cutout for all the guns and bows. And then above that is a bed that has a divider so we can both sleep in there.
Does the cargo guide lock?
Yeah.
It does?
Yep.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Does this make your garage look so much more just, there's nothing in there? Because when I look at my garage, I'm like, hey, man, I wish I had a van to put all my shit in.
You would think so, but I have found that it doesn't really matter. It you transition between seasons so much, the garage is always full of stuff.
That's true. Yeah. Especially if you're a big waterfowl guy, you got to have, there's no way to get around that shit.
No.
The garage is always full.
No.
I might do a podcast one time just about garage, just go through a garage setup. Because every hunter has to have a garage that's put together.
Yeah. I would love to have like a 40 by 60 building.
Oh.
And finally have all of my stuff in one spot.
A van,
a bus,
increasingly smaller vehicles.
Yeah, it's have to be like a 8-stall garage so I can keep buying like
smaller, a little. Yeah, eventually it's just a scooter, public land scooter.
I'll just buy like a 10-bay storage unit.
Yeah.
And then each one could be a different season, vehicle.
Waterfowl, upland, whitetail. That would actually be, we could make some,
nice.
We could make some money off that in Bozeman, I bet, if we had like a storage unit just for hunters. Storage unit complex just for hunters.
Yep.
Actually, that's not a, I'm going to write that down.
Plan.
That's a good business idea. You're a guy that starts businesses.
Yes. Yeah.
Think of Bozeman hunting storage where we have like, this is your waterfowl one and this is your whitetail one.
So what you do, just off the top of my head, you would have storage units that are specific.
This is patented and protected.
Yeah, this is also. But in the center of the complex, you have a game cleaning facility.
Oh, yeah.
And so people could pull in and drop their four-wheeler or the boat and then pull in and hoist the deer up or the elk up or the quarters or whatever and cut them all up. And
in the back end of our facility, we have a bar where people come in, little bragging board. They get to put their picture in. Yep. You get to say, okay, a couple $100 a month. You get to be a part of the hunt club. You get to use our game cleaning facilities. We'll hire somebody to be there. This is actually, we're going to cut this out of the show.
I like this idea. I'm ready to invest.
Okay. I'm going to sell the van. We're going to sell the bus.
We'll raffle the bus and use it to pay for the hunting storage.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll just like, this one is a waterfowl one. And be like, it's the exact same as the other one. Be like, no, it's
not.
Choose your own adventure. It's different dimensions. I feel like this. But anyway, do you feel like that the van, you can tell me what kind of van it was, but you feel like the van was obviously more economic fuel wise than the bus.
Yes.
But do you feel like it had the same allure and the same comfort level? Like, did you miss the old girl?
Yeah, I mean, so it's trade-offs, right? So the van is nice because you can travel a lot quicker and you can take it anywhere. Having a 4-wheel drive van with all that storage and everything built out, very purpose-driven for hunting. It's an awesome rig. What I really miss about having the bus all the time is honestly, like the space there was always a place for everything in the bus, and I could pack for 3 months of traveling, 3 different seasons, all the different weather types, and hide, all of the other stuff that I wasn't using could be jammed under beds and back under stuff and packed in until I swap seasons, and then I could just grab stuff out. And then also being able to stand all the time, and if I didn't want to set up a tent, I could cook in the bus or. So there's just, it's just trade-offs, but the bus didn't go anywhere other than, a campground or a trailhead or like the foothills of stuff. It wasn't built for back roads on the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I always think of, a lot of guys sleep in the back of their trucks. A lot of guys, I've been really just enjoying putting up a nice tent. I don't know I've just been sleeping in tents forever. So it just feels more common to me. I don't know that slide in the back of my truck with a topper on it would be so appealing to me in any way. So there's so many different ways to do it. We've talked about that on this show a couple of times. Well, how are you truck camping? Because especially in the West, but as you know, across the country, having a place to easily lay your head is essential if you're hunting public land and you're moving around.
Yeah, and I found I do like backcountry hunting and doing you throw a camp on your back and you're going in for whatever 5 to 10 days. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of times I can hunt harder even if I'm hiking extra every single day and I'm not spiking out. I can hunt harder if I know I have a warm, dry place to go sleep and be able to make good food, and I'm going to sleep better, I'm going to eat better, and like the next morning I can wake up and charge in another 4 or 5 miles and then charge back out instead of being completely wiped out. But that's just me personally. Everybody has their own level of comfort on all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's cyclic for me too, because sometimes this year especially, I got to a point where I was telling some guys at work, I got to a point where I wanted to be alone hunting. I don't know why. I didn't have any reason for it. I think part of it was I took my dad out early in the season. I had taken other people out. When you're hunting elk, you kind of have to have two people. You kill one, it's a hell of a lot easier to pack it out with another person along with you. And for me too, we're in grizzly country all the time. It's also nice to have somebody that can shoot a bear off you if it's ripping your face.
Yeah,
those are nice things to have. Those are excellent things to have. But you're hunting with a different person. Then you have to say like who's going to shoot, who's going to not, and then I always end up deferring because I do want other people to kill things. But then eventually you're like, man, I gotta fill some tags. I gotta get going. Now I want to be by myself, make my own decisions. So I was happy to hunt deer on my own, hunt pronghorn on my own, just to get to the point where it was like nothing else mattered but where I was and who I was with. But then other times, like that time that I slept in the van, there was like 8 people in that hunt.
Yeah.
And we just basically hung out in the middle of a snowstorm, and that was still fun in and of itself.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that's right. It like just changes from time to time, like kind of how you feel about each hunt and what you want the experience to be. And I think that's just how it goes. Yeah.
And you and I have been on some whole kind of different adventures, man.
We've been kind of all over the world doing stuff.
That's right. Yeah. And so those things, like those memories, I pick and choose, but when I waffle, I tend to waffle towards being with people more than being alone.
Yeah.
When I want to kill something, it's easier to be alone.
Yeah.
Like you just make all your own choices, you move on your own timeline, and boom, 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 you're done. But when
I really like having at least one other person there, if only to share the whole experience with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. But ultimately, like when people are thinking about, when I moved to Montana, the first thing I thought about is I gotta have a setup for each type of hunt. Because there's so many options in a place like Montana, and then most places where you can move around and hunt across the state, there's a lot of options. Like in South Dakota, where you're at, you got a lot of things you can go and do.
Yep.
From seasonally for sure. And so you got to kind of have like, if I'm running a gun on my own, I'm going to have this. I'm going to have Stone Glacier makes a great biv that is your trekking pole and a covering, and it's less than a pound. So what's it called? It escapes me what it's called. Something. You guys will look it up. I've mentioned it before.
Phil, look that up.
Phil, Jamie.
Jamie, yeah, young Jamie, look that up.
Look it up, Jamie. We're not that. I've finished my beer, by the way. For folks that aren't, for the folks that are listening and expecting us to like have a point to the conversation, it's Friday. Sam's having a White Claw. I'm finishing a Modelo.
Yeah,
not
and I think
not a sponsor.
I think we'll make some good points. I mean, we've got a lot.
There's no way to know.
We've got a lot to talk about. We've got some conservation stuff to cover, and
let's get to that because it feels meaningful, and I'm out of my beer. So maybe my wife will bring me another one. I'll text her. Do you feel like, where do you think we are in terms of conservation as a whole in the hunting community? I mean, over the years that I've been in the hunting community, I've seen it. I don't know. I want to say it became a buzzword. It became something everybody was thinking about. And certainly for you and for Meat Eater and for what I do here at the Hunting Collective, like we build our ethos and the reasons we go outside, we bake in conservation, right? So conservation went from something was talked about after we talked about how big the buck was into a part of what we did, like a forward-facing value set for our group. And now, with everything, there's a counterculture that builds when you're talking about conservation all the time. That there's people that are tired of hearing it, or they just want to go hunt, right? And so I think that's a natural evolution. Do you feel that too in what you do? Because I know with Public Land Tees and with the Duck Stamp initiative that you're working on, Stamp It Forward. I mean, you're directly in the business of conservation and promoting it and understanding where it's living right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's it really ramped up there when it became a hashtag. It became a cool thing to talk about and a cool thing to promote. And like you said, like I think some of that has fallen off, mostly just because we all have very little time for that much attention on any one thing. And so there's, people are still talking about it. I think the best thing that has come from all of this is that even if less people are talking about it today, people are still thinking about it when they're making decisions on, buying tags or supporting conservation groups or, helping out at some river cleanup or whatever it might be. I think even if it's not like this, war cry at the moment, I think it's still in the back of a lot of people's minds. And I still get a lot of messages, and I'm sure you do too, about people really thanking us for how much promotion we do of how important conservation is, especially during the pandemic, because all of the conservation groups are really hurting because they weren't able to have any banquets. All the events are canceled. It's because it's such a shift immediately. It's really hard for people to make that transition to only donating online instead of being able to go and hang out with their buddies and spend $500 on raffle tickets and whatever it might be. So I think we're just in this weird transition period where nonprofits are learning how to raise money outside of the banquet scene, and people that want to be involved in conservation are trying to learn how they can still help without going to a banquet. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. So anybody listening, you're probably not going to a banquet this year, but it goes a long ways. Go sign up for 5 different conservation groups. I mean, it'll be about $120 to do that.
Yeah.
But it goes a long way.
It really does. And conservation is a concept where it really depends on the people. Like it is something that is so aligned with people's sensibilities and what they're willing to give to it. I think hunting itself is a participatory, activity, but you can participate in it without having any knowledge of the conservation that rides along, in your pocket while you go there. Now we'll talk about the duck stamp and some of the other things that you're contributing to, even if you don't have the knowledge that you're doing it. But I think that's the more tangible side of conservation. The less tangible side is like how we think about, the value system, right? And the value system leads to wanting to pay into it.
Yep.
The only reason I've ever been a life member of any organization is because I felt like I know that BHA, my life membership of BHA really matters. It really matters to them from a revenue standpoint, and the things that they do that are good for me. Really sorry, I got a message that I need to deal with. What the fuck? Never mind. I need to shut down all my messaging systems. My Slack is blowing up. What was I saying? My podcast is going downhill over the years.
You're just talking about how important a lifetime membership to BHA is.
So yeah, a lifetime member. Cut this out, Phil, you motherfucker. For example, the lifetime membership to BHA, I sit on the board there. I know what that revenue means to that organization, and I know when something like the Great American Outdoors Act comes up, or something like the Farm Bill, for example. If you're talking about Pheasants Forever, there's so much legislation that requires us to act, right? And conservation requires us to act. Hunting itself requires us to participate, and it's an own action. But it doesn't require you to do anything other than go and fill your tag or not.
Yep.
Conservation is a parallel activity that we all have to take part in along the way. So it really is on us, and that's a good feeling. I know when you and I are hanging out that we share that, and we want to fight for that, and that's cool, man. And for us to be able to move along in our lives and in the industry and in our hunting experiences, knowing that. I think it brings people together. So I hope everybody can recognize that in a changing time. It's a good point you made there.
And I forget who wrote the article, but I honestly really enjoyed it. It was most people that get into hunting don't do so because they want to participate in conservation. There's a whole slew of other reasons that they want to hunt, whether it be to source their own food or to spend time with family and friends or just kind of get back to, reset your soul in the woods. But the majority of people don't go, I'm going to start hunting because I want to donate to conservation. And so like you said, it's a parallel activity that you need to understand more about. And so people like us, we just need to continue to do a better job educating about how important just simple license sales are, as well as everything else, whether, through the nonprofits and through the Pittman Robertson and through the LWCF and you name it. There's all these different programs that still most people have no idea about that keep the world of hunting and fishing, moving.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think it's just important for us to continue to do what we do best, and that's advocate for wild places, an escape for people to go, and money to keep all of those places open.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we too also, and I would be guilty of this too, and I realized this when I was writing an article on Pittman Robertson for Peterson's Hunting some years back. In my mind and in the crew I hang out with, and even the people that listen to this podcast, because 11.5 million people don't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll get there someday, obviously. We're close. We're not close. That we live in a bubble. I live in a bubble where everybody I talk to understands Pittman Robertson. Everybody I talk to understands the duck stamp. Everybody I talk to understands and is passionate about Land and Water Conservation Fund. And so in my own mind, I start to build this community of hunters where it's the prevailing knowledge set is that of the people I hang out with.
Yep.
And that's just not true, And I took a straw poll of 200 people that I know that hunt, that are avid hunters, when I was writing this article about Pittman Robertson, and I asked them the simple question, what is Pittman Robertson? And I also gave them the other, here are the other names of it. Like, what is this? What does it mean to you? And 197 of them didn't know what it was. 2 of them knew what it was. One of them talked through kind of that money went somewhere and didn't, And so in this idea that, and can I blame them? No. When you buy a license, and they give you the little book, the little regulations book, no matter where you are and what state you are. Is Pittman Robertson, Duck Stamp, LWCF, on and on, Farm Bill, on and on we go? Is that printed on the front and the first 3 pages of that?
Not right in the top. It's typically if there is something, it's always right at the back of the book that says.
It's by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
And so no matter what we do, we may penetrate the same core group of people that really love this. But, I think the beauty of the things that you're doing is that by wearing a t-shirt or by passing forward a duck stamp, there's incremental growth in the core group of people that we feel are important for the future of this thing, of people that really have the value system and aren't just taking part in the participatory hunt, but are engaging in the value system that comes with it, which is I believe is a beautiful thing. It makes your life better, in my opinion.
I completely agree.
I was gonna say, I hope you don't. I disagree, Ben. That's absolutely not. Have you seen have you had a lot of people through what you do through your Instagram that do tell you, hey man, I never really thought about it this way, but now, I'm telling everybody about this.
Yeah, and honestly, even people that I know who have been avid hunters in the past are starting to frame, whether it be the duck stamp or everything else that we're up to, they're starting to frame money generated for conservation in a different way in their mind. I had a buddy who he is a guide at a waterfowling outfitter, and he's like, hey man, I bought 3 stamps the other day. I bought a t-shirt from you, so I'm getting a stamp anyway, but I went and bought 3 when I went to buy the one to have in my wallet because I had never, ever thought about the fact that money just goes directly back to, protecting wetland habitat. And so it's been fun to get those types of messages from people who have been in it for a long time. They're like, oh man, it makes total sense just to, throw a little bit extra at it every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that money, because I know duck stamp legislation in Congress is one of the only taxes in the country where people add to it,
right.
Tax us more. The constituency is hey, listen, we'll pay more.
I would like that. Yeah. I'd like it to be $50.
Yeah. And imagine if you lived in, we've been using the analogy lately around here, if hunting was a town, right? If you lived in a town and the hunting community was a town, it would be a lot of white dudes, but we'll save that for another day. But there would be a shared value system, a communal value system that says hey, we really want that fire station to have a new hose. Here's some money. We really, because we all get to use the public land system and even are all able to at the level we're able to cooperate with landowners, hunt their land as well, whether that's leasing or just a cooperative work exchange or whatever that might end up being. We're able to have this shared value system. We treat each other better. We treat the places we are better. At least in theory. There's plenty of examples of people trashing places they shouldn't trash, but in theory, like, our town is a pretty damn, like, at least in the way we act, a pretty damn close-knit community that is willing to contribute to make the place better. Right?
Yeah.
Like, at its, and that's what conservation in terms of a value system does. Yes, when we're at the bar, we argue about compound bow versus crossbow.
Well, of course.
but we're all paying into the bar, man, you know?
You know, the thing that puts me at ease, though, is that it doesn't matter what industry, like whether it be hunting or biking or camping or, you know, it doesn't matter. Or if you sell computer software or what, you know, it doesn't matter the industry. Every single group has that infighting of some description.
Yeah.
Now, on the hunting side of things, it's a little more important to squash that down because we are under a microscope most of the time. And so it's just, we need to make sure that we're promoting hunting and outdoor recreation in a very positive light whenever possible.
Yeah. Isn't that like that ends up being, you know, where conservation and social media and everything gets thrown into it? We've talked about it on this show ad nauseum, but I think it to me, it becomes like the ultimate duality for hunting. The way I put it last episode when I was talking to Mark Kenyon was everybody should be able to do what they want, but nobody should be able to do what they want. Like,
yeah.
this is kind of how hunting feels at different points in time. When somebody's doing something that puts a bad light on everybody and is obviously disingenuous and ill-intentioned, everybody wants, and it's legal. Like we had up here in White Sulphur Springs, east of Bozeman, which I'm sure you're familiar with. 100 hunters got together and flock shot 50 elk. Right?
I heard about that. Yep.
So this happened, right? We talked about it on the show. Like, okay, but it was all but 3 of those hunters got actual citations. Like that, this was a legal shoot, quote unquote. But no other hunter outside of those 100. I don't know how they got 100 people together. I would love to interview one of the 100 people. Like, where did you meet each other? Was this an online message board thing? Like,
yeah.
Nobody outside of those 100 hunters would agree with what they did, and I would want to outright ban them from doing what they did. But at the same time, it's legal, and so it's just unethical. So that brings me back to, you know, a lot of hunters will say like. Michael Waddell, like that guy, but he would say, like, you know, if you want to hunt the way you want to do it. While I agree with that, at the same time, you know, if there was 100 hunters on his property shooting 50 deer, he probably would think differently. So, sorry, Michael Waddell, it's not the point. But
I think that statement from Waddell is easier to make in 2002.
Yeah.
You know, before Facebook and before Instagram and before Twitter and all that stuff. Like, before social media, like, if it's legal, pursue it, do it the way you want. Like, the only people that are ever going to see a photo of you with a deer or however you killed it is some guy at a coffee shop or a cafe or your uncle or whatever. But in the world that we live in, you can't go anywhere and do something stupid because somebody's going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that there was a famous, semi-famous hunting couple that speared a bear. I mean, I was in camp the days after they were there.
Yep.
And now they went and did that. And not only did they do it legally, but the idea that they promoted it in the way that they did led to the outlawing of that practice in the place where they were hunting.
Right.
And so that's what we're talking about here. Like, in general, that can happen. It will happen if you do what they did. If you glorify things that we all know shouldn't be, and we all know that the general population won't agree with, in the name of I'll hunt the way I want, you're likely you open up the chance for you to have a negative impact on hunting and the people around you. You open up that chance, and so then you open up with that chance. You also open up responsibility at the same time. So. You know, social media is a weird place for many reasons. Did I tell you that I did you watch The Social Dilemma? I've been telling every guest has to hear this from me now. What did you think about The Social Dilemma?
a lot of it was stuff that I kind of figured, simply because of how much time I spend on social media, like promoting public land teas and conservation and everything that I'm doing, photography and whatever. And that's my job. And so I started to notice how easily you can manipulate your own algorithm that like of stuff that you see just by like in a single day, you can change the entire feed that you see on your page. And so it made sense to me as they went through like how sophisticated that is of like they are pushing things to you specifically. It's not like a blanket like, oh, this is a hunter. It's like, this is a guy that looked at this tree stand on this day for this long, and now we're going to show him more of that or whatever. So yeah, like after watching it, it just really reaffirmed a lot of the stuff that I kind of already knew. But it's still scary. I mean, it's amazing what they're able to do. And Josh and I were talking about it, and he said the one line that stuck out to him was, if you are getting something for free, you are the product.
Yeah.
And that's,
if you're not paying for the product, you're the product.
Right.
And I feel like they're, and I felt like the folks presenting that the criticism I have is like the attention economy has been there since the printing press.
Mm-hmm.
Probably been there before that. Has the attention economy been amplified over the past 2 decades? Absolutely, it has been amplified and been commercialized. Absolutely, but that's been how our society has moved forward. We innovate in the commercial enterprises, and we need people to know about those things. So we innovate in the attention economy, and those things smash together. And so part of me was like, yes, you're right. Part of me is like, well, this has probably been happening since television was invented, and it's just another evolution of that attention economy. But right, people that are listening to this show, if you're out there and you really love THC and you get it for free, and you don't buy all the advertisers' products immediately, and we go off the air, it's your fault. Let's just say that. Let's say that. It's your fault. If you don't have a Work Sharp and some Element and all this other stuff in your cabinet right now, and we go off the air, you're to blame. Putting it right on you out there. But in reality, I was just saying that to say, like, I watched that when I was in COVID lockdown, and then we had a contest on the show last couple weeks where I got real nervous, and I unfollowed everybody on Instagram except for White Claw. So now I only follow White Claw.
And that's your THC page, or
my
your personal
page. Yeah, my personal page. And it was a mistake. Yeah, I know. It was a little bit rash, and I found out that White Claw's social media is not that great. They don't. They just kind of share pictures of White Claw cans.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have to rebuild my Instagram page from the ground up.
Yeah, but, you're going to have to.
I got scared. I really did get scared.
So overall, what did you think about the documentary, though? And like what it mean, like more so like, we always look at stuff through the lens of hunting. And so from that standpoint, like how do you see it affecting our industry for the positive or negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, just like anything else, just like an AR-15, social media is how you use it. Just like anything else, it is not it is taking advantage of the things that most media has always taken advantage of. It is the reason that news media is sensationalist and polarized, is because what's going to capture your attention for the most time, and what's going to get you to act, in the most aggressive way. So I do think it is an extension of a new world for us where we literally are acting. When I unfollowed everybody from my Instagram page, I no longer had a view into your life other than if you actually talked to me.
Right.
And I no longer had a view into a lot of other people's lives unless they actually texted me or they called me or I searched them out. And so, and one of the things in that documentary that got me was, the idea that swiping down to get more content's like a slot machine.
Yep.
Like those types of activities. And when you start to think about your own mind reacting in that way to the stimulus of social media, and I've seen this in people that I know, you start to become a little bit weakened to propaganda, a little bit weakened to the more negative thought processes of that we've all seen. And I was talking to somebody who was in the fashion industry recently, and they were saying, I was telling them about a lot of the negative stuff that goes on social media within the hunting world. And they were like, oh yeah, we got that too. And like you said earlier, it's not hunting specific that there are trends and counter trends and culture and counterculture, influencers and anti-influencers.
Yep.
I think this is just the natural reaction to us feeling our way through social media. I mean, it just is. And you know, and so I don't know. I guess I don't. I used to think I had a good handle on it. I don't know that I have a handle on it now. I want people to. I want to be able to share myself with people in a way that's curated and that I choose to, and I want to promote the ideas that I think are important. I like this a lot better. I like what we're doing right now a whole lot better than I like social media, but it still has value. It's not meaningless. So yeah, I'm not sure, man. I have kids, and I hope that by the time they're old enough to want to use it, that I have a better perspective, quite honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the next decade is going to be very interesting just to see where it all goes and kind of how information within our space gets shared as some more of the stuff gets censored just because of the nature of it.
Yeah. Do you think
we don't really have leverage to fight against it, because even though it's the most natural thing that we have done for, since the beginning of time, it's still against the people who are creating these products. It's against a lot of their beliefs. So we're getting it for free. And so we don't really have a lot of fight other than doing the right thing, which is promoting it in the most positive way possible. And that'll just continue to get shared.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, the restrictions are based on, someone who is either ignorant to what we do or anti what we do. And so to the idea that if you showed yourself skinning a deer on Instagram, they may flag it and censor it or however they do that. And so that kind of censorship denotes kind of the value systems and the perspectives of people that don't do what we do. And might be, if you were just able to sit down and talk to them in a just like we're talking right now, in person or via Zoom, and explain it all in long form. I've never met anybody that got it in that way that didn't immediately pick it up and start having some kind of interest or at least some respect for what it was. If you get it in short little snippets from people you know or don't know, you can't, there's no choice but to have a warped perspective of it, right? I mean, there's absolutely no choice. If you only followed Joe Rogan and he was the only source of hunting knowledge that you had, which for a lot of people that's true. I mean, we love Joe, like he does what he does, but you would have a myopic perspective on the approach, right?
Yeah.
And you would have a myopic perspective with me too, and with you, and anyone else. Because I'm not talking about squirrel hunting all that much, and I'm not
very, very rarely.
Very rarely. Although I do like to do it.
And I never talk about trapping,
I know we had a lot of emailers asking about trapping, but we didn't do a whole thing with Sam. But I do think we're in a time where we are being manipulated in so many different ways. And I said this a couple episodes ago, but I do think it's true that we are in a position where a lot of people your age and my age are separated from their family unit in a way. I don't know that you're pretty close to your parents where you're at, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Pretty close to your family.
A few hundred miles.
Yeah. It's being more, I say it this way, it's more common for people our age to be separated from their family units, to move away from home, to go live in a big city or go live in a place where the jobs are more plentiful. And so you get separated from that family unit that grounds you and gives you the right perspectives, and you get perspective on who you are and how you came to be who you are. You get separated from that value system, plunged into a world where you're basically alone, at least in the person-to-person perspective. And then everything is trying to addict you. And the thing about the social dilemma that I didn't agree with is like not just social media is trying to addict you. Don't come at me like you have the monopoly on addicting people to things.
No. Yeah.
Everybody's trying to, sugar is addicting, fast food is addicting. So, commercial, and from a commercial sense, all the wrong things are addicting unless you become addicted to like running marathons or,
Even that can be unhealthy.
Even that can be unhealthy, right? Your knees ain't gonna thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I was going with all that, but I do think that we're in a world where, and if you can, the thing most people have to overcome to be a productive person in society is shirking off, or at least having a healthy relationship with the things that mean to addict us.
Yeah.
And that's food, and that's television, and that's social media. Because the more you spend eating, consuming any of those products, whether they're media or not, the more that you mean to those companies.
Yep.
And that's why you probably haven't heard much about this program. We've started calling ourselves a cult because I feel, well, number one, cults get a bad name.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So you get a bad name, but also cults. There needs to be a cult of people that are free thinking and not trying to addict each other to a certain way of approaching the world. So we're a cult. We're a free thinking cult.
I like it. One thing I would like to do before we wrap this up at some point is flip this whole thing on its head and talk about some of the positive sides of everything we do on social media. And one of those being the Stamp It Forward project again this year, and how
we're going to get to that.
Okay, sorry.
There's two things I want to talk about with you.
Okay.
And we got way off subject.
Yeah.
First, we're gonna end with Stamp It Forward, because I'll start by saying I think Stamp It Forward is the coolest thing anyone's done in the industry for about 5 years, maybe 10. Second, snacks. Now,
snacks, yeah.
We're not going to get to the Stamp It Forward until we get to snacks.
That's okay.
Order of importance.
Yep.
Did you? Because you have, if people don't know, Sam has pioneered. I mean, really, the Teddy Roosevelt of snacking.
Yeah.
In the tree stand, I feel.
I mean, I appreciate that. That's a big title.
Yeah. I mean, that's I'm right about that. Did you discover anything new this year for snacking, or do you feel?
Oh yeah, no. It's tough. So the level of snacking that I do when I do it right, like it takes time and thought and preparation.
Just like social media.
Yeah, I have a lot more ideas for different snacks, and I meant to get there this year. I was going to do like several days of just elaborate snacks that involve, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three Yeti bottles that combine stuff. But
a lot of weight.
This year, I did hot apple pie in one bottle, and then ice cream in the other bottle, and I brought 2 screw-in cup holders for the tree, and then ate it while I was about 20 feet up in a tree, and it was amazing. The best part about that is I dropped a piece of ice cream on the ground while I was scooping it into my gullet, and I had 2 raccoons come up and eat the eat the ice cream at the base of my tree.
Well, that's a way to attract wildlife if you're bored in the tree stand.
Yeah, I mean, like, I suppose I could get
is that baiting?
Cited for baiting.
Yeah, is that baiting?
But no, I've got a lot of ideas. Like it started.
Let me stop you quickly.
Okay,
Did you go in to eat one piece of pie and then go in and get ice cream and put it in your mouth and chew it together?
Yeah, well, so I would do same spoon, which was actually a bottle opener I found in my truck because I forgot to grab a utensil. But pie, then ice cream on top of it, then eat.
Yeah, pie, ice cream on top.
Same spoon. Yep.
Same spoon. Okay, I was picturing you had like somehow 2 bottles and you were like double dipping.
Oh, I had 2 bottles.
Right, but you were okay.
Yeah, it's on the page. Just go take a look.
I'm trying to visualize. At Sam Soholt, you'll see what that's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, continue with your other innovations.
So it started in 2017. The first bottle snack that I took was pizza rolls in a Yeti bottle.
Were they Totino's pizza rolls?
Totino's, yeah.
Not a sponsor, but if you guys are looking for,
I would love for them to be one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, pizza rolls, and then the next year I did biscuits and gravy.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah, and then this year with the apple pie and ice cream, it's really.
If only like Yeti would make, if you could call them up, and they would make like shapes for what you needed.
Yeah, the problem is, so I'm probably going to get in trouble from Yeti's lawyers, but you really don't want to. They told me you don't want to put hot food, or at least the lawyer said that you don't want to put hot food in the bottles because if you forgot it, it could ferment and rot and cause like an explosive problem if you leave the food in the bottle.
Yeah, it definitely does because it creates like some pressure and then exploding pizza. But you would have, if they had like a 10-inch pizza Yeti.
Ooh, yeah.
That would open up.
Yeah.
And then go back down, and then you could just strap the pizza in so it didn't flip over.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, mark that down. Brian Barksdale is one of the Yeti's main lawyer guy.
Tell him to get on that.
Yeah, Brian, if you're listening, get on that, buddy. We need this. We need this. We need.
But
this
no, I've what I probably need to do is find, do like a week at the end of October when it's not like the full rut where I'm not like getting up quite as early and where I have a slightly more time to like prepare the snacks, because I've got a whole list of ideas put together for this whole thing. So
good. Well,
so
yeah.
The hashtag is never go snackless.
It's again. I mean, you could be. I'd be. Maybe I'm like the Gifford Pinchot of snacks, but you're definitely Teddy Roosevelt. Definitely. All right, snap it forward.
Yep.
Is that like? I'll answer it this way. Is there any other conservation program like Stamp It Forward?
Not that I know of.
The answer is no, absolutely not. Everyone else is behind the curve. That's the answer that I'll give on your behalf.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
There's hundreds of millions of dollars and really smart people coming up with, that are getting paid to come up with good ideas for conservation. Yet R3 doesn't hold a candle to Stamp It Forward. And so go ahead, just tell everybody what the update is on Stamp It Forward and give them a quick rundown in case they don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So Stamp It Forward is a way to kind of turn one fundraiser into another. But the way it works is we ask people and companies to directly donate money to us via, whatever, if they want to write a check or PayPal or Venmo or whatever. But with every single dollar we receive, we buy federal duck stamps. And so, this year, last year we did just over 1,000 stamps, raised $25,000. And this year we had a couple donations come in the last few days, actually. And so we're at like 1,570 stamps total. And so there.
Let's back off a second. And let people know how amazing this is. People are just giving you money. You're not giving them anything in return.
Nope. So the donation is just that. It is a direct shot to conservation. We don't keep the money. We buy stamps with it. If people do a donation through the website, we are giving them a Stamp It Forward sticker as like a commemoration for their donation. And so we eat the cost on the shipping and the sticker as a way for them to feel, or like just to give them something to commemorate their donation. But yeah, other than that, we're not giving anything in return for that initial donation. And then once we pool up, we typically run the initial launch for 2 or 3 weeks where we're trying to raise as much money as possible. And then we always do the initial upfront buy. So this year we took money out of our conservation fund and we bought 200 duck stamps up front, so $5,000. And then since then we have raised basically another $35,000 this year that has come in to buy duck stamps. And then what we do on the back end is we give a federal duck stamp away with every single item we sell on our website. And what that does is $5 from every item we sell goes back to conservation anyway. So we just continue to roll that into the program and raise additional funds for the whole thing. So we're right in that $40,000 range this year just for duck stamps.
Yeah, and so you're thinking about like the idea of the duck stamp itself. You are paying money now. Let's just get this one clear. The duck stamp is a requirement to hunt waterfowl.
Yes.
So it's a requirement, but that money goes back into the resource and the habitat and wildlife refuges across the country in many different ways.
Yep.
So that's the spirit of the duck stamp anyway. But most people are getting something when they give, right? They give $25, they get a stamp, they get the privilege of hunting waterfowl.
Right.
You know, whether it's a state or federal stamp, mostly federal stamp in this case.
Yep.
So you have that set up, but in what you've done is raise awareness and convince people just to give money to give a stranger a duck stamp.
Right.
And hope to educate them on this idea that this happens in hunting.
Yep.
Just by the mechanism of doing it, you are taking part in giving something back just by duck hunting yourself.
Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know, so if you're a waterfowler, you have to purchase a stamp, but you don't have to be a waterfowler to get a stamp.
That's
so
right.
anyone can buy one, and 98% of the purchase price is by law has to be funneled into wetland purchase, conservation easements, habitat improvement, and not only does that help migratory bird species, but it's good for soil erosion, flooding, water quality, air quality, and helps 700 species overall through conserving wetlands. So it's also a big part of the reason that we have a national refuge system, and the stamp itself is on the refuges that require a pass to get in. The duck stamp allows you to go visit the National Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, it's a pass. Like, how many people have paid to get into the thing, and while in their pocket was a free pass?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you think of like 99 cents of every duck stamp goes directly into something they call the Migratory Bird Conservation Fund, right? And that's going to help them purchase or lease spots where waterfowl live, wetlands, wildlife habitat, and then that stuff goes into the national refuge system, and then we get to access those things and see what the prime habitat is, and oftentimes hunt and recreate in those areas, man. And this has been going on. Correct me, you probably know more like the actual numbers here. It's a 1934 program. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt. It was originally called, I should pull this up. Jamie, pull this up. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, so I might get some of it wrong. Migratory Bird Hunting Stamp Act, translated to the Duck Stamp Act.
Yep.
In 1934, President Roosevelt, you know, just like everything else during that time, it was a time of reformation, and the habitat, waterfowl species were being killed at market, and their habitat was being destroyed across the country.
Yep. And a big part of the reason that they did it was not solely to protect waterfowl. And although the market hunting, that was a big chunk of it, it was also in North America, birds in general were being killed at mass to collect feathers for decorative hats and apparel, basically. And so it was a way to protect, migratory birds, but everything else at the same time.
Yeah, and there's stamp collectors, and there's art. There's people that compete each year to get. What's that? $1 Million Duck is a documentary. If you want to learn about how people compete to get their art on there, that's another cultural thing about the duck stamps. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's been really cool. Through this whole program, have actually got to know some of the artists. There's one artist. She was actually the junior duck stamp winner a few years back. Rebecca Knight is her name. Amazing artist. So it's been cool. She's been sending messages about the program and promoting it. Got to have a recorded message from the winner of last year's stamp. My wife's grad school roommate, her uncles are the most winningest duck stamp artists in history, the Houtmans.
Yeah, they are. They're in that documentary as well.
Yeah, and so it's just been really cool to kind of have all these things happen from doing this program and raising money for the program. It's been cool.
Yeah, I mean it's if you would go to purchase your license to get a duck stamp, and I'll have you tell people where they can buy duck stamps and things like that, since you may be the foremost expert in where to buy duck stamps at this point.
Yep.
This is, I actually pulled up the Gov site on this and get some real numbers. I wasn't wrong about some of those other numbers I said, so I'm glad I have that. I was right about that. So they say since the 1934, $800 million has gone into the fund to protect more than 5.7 million acres of habitat.
Yep.
And how many people along the way, hunters in our community, purchased a stamp, helped fund that land acquisition and protection without even knowing they were doing it? They put money towards one of the most successful conservation programs in our country without even knowing they were doing it. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful crime that they did not know that. I'm glad that they made those purchases, and I'm glad that all of the reasons they went hunting were sufficient enough to get them to put $25 down to go and participate. But what we talk about in the beginning of this show is exactly like this thing that Sam's doing is like the promotion of the parallel knowledge track that you have to go on to justify this money that we are required to spend to go and take part in this pursuit. So it's a wonderful circle, and something like this ensures that how many ever people even hear about it kind of can complete that circle in their own minds and know a little bit more. So I'm sure you've had lots of people reach out and tell you exactly that. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been really cool. Just how many people that have learned about the program just have been like beyond fired up about the fact that we're doing it. And what's been really fun this year is, so we added last year, we didn't have it on the website, a way to donate, and we added that to the website this year. And what we've seen people do is they'll go to our website and they know they're going to get a stamp with a shirt or a hoodie or a hat or whatever that they order. But they'll buy a donation and a shirt. And so it's like, they're like, oh, I'll double down. Like I'll make a donation so the next guy can also get a stamp. And the more that happens, the more we can keep giving out, and the more money we raise, and the more people get to pay it forward.
Keep on keeping on. Yeah, that's the pay it forward. I mean, there's other things now. I'm reading this website that's, they have the junior duck stamp program, in which youngsters get to go and try to design or draw a duck stamp themselves. There's state level competitions. There's so many things, and I've actually talked to Suzanne Fellows over there, who runs the federal programs and is a big part of this. And we at some point are going to have her on the show. We may have to crank that back up, but there's so many things. Obviously, with all these conservation programs, we're able to tout kind of. Pittman Robertson is a good example of we touting what comes from these funds or where these funds go. Yep. But once they get into the government and get into those systems, there's a lot of things that happen, and there's a lot of people whose jobs are to propagate and promote and make sure these things run smoothly. And it's just another example of how all this marries up into something, bigger than all of us, and something we ought to protect and fight to protect. So,
yep, absolutely.
Well, I think we're all glad. And look, I probably said this before about what you do, but there's conservation groups, not to name any, that they employ dozens of people, hundreds of people. they be wanting to have an impact like you've had just with you and your brother, and trying to do what you've done with public land teas and across the board. So I think it's a substantial impact on our generation. Like you and I are pretty much the same age and known each other for a while, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this and hunting together, hopefully till we're old dudes and looking back. I remember when.
Yep.
I look forward to
at some point when we're not hiking so far away from the truck all the time.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're still hunting together at that point.
Our kids will be like packing deer out for us.
That's right.
We're like, I remember White Claw, Dad. What's White Claw? I'm already 6 White Claws in. Well, good, man. What can people do? Obviously we've talked about it, but give people the direct things they can do for Stamp It Forward, because again, this is it's the holidays coming up here. So, this is a good time.
At this point in time, we're still accepting donations if people want, but it's towards the end of the year. So I understand it's starting to wind down a little bit, but we've got big plans for 2021. But if people still want to donate, they can donate directly on the website, which is publiclandtees.com, or PayPal, which is publiclandtees@gmail.com, or my Venmo, which is just at Sam Soholt. We have a whole page dedicated to the Stamp It Forward project on our website. People can learn more about that, which is publiclandtees.com/Stamp It Forward.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if people really want to help, they can donate or just go to our website, pick up a shirt, a hoodie, a hat, and you're going to get a free duck stamp with every item, and then just give that to somebody. Or, you can certainly use it to go hunting, but you probably, at this point in the season, you might already have one. Give it to somebody, explain what it means, explain where that money goes, and educate somebody else on how important these programs are. Because the more people that are out there doing that, like, we can just continue to have this spread and grow this idea that what we're doing it's all really beneficial to everyone.
Yeah. And then, always in divided times, and times where we're supposed to not get along based on our color of our skin or where we live or who we voted for, a tiny little stamp with a duck on it can help you out.
That's
can
right.
help you find common ground with folks.
Yeah,
so.
Just a little bit of a conservation bridge right there.
Yes, a very needed bridge.
Yes,
and a good bad thing. And I would just say this: we do one thing that would have been cool with you maybe in the future, Sam, to do, because you do all this stuff on your own. You're an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that write into our show and say, I've got a journalism degree, or I've got a communications degree, or I'm super passionate about hunting and I want to start this or that. Here's an idea that I have. You don't all have to message Sam for advice, but just watch what he does. Because it's like, what can one guy in a Venmo account and an idea pull off?
It's surprisingly, it's amazing how well this all took off. And so just super thankful that everybody was willing to get on board with it. But yeah, I mean, I think best advice, sure. Definitely send me a message. I try to do my best to respond to absolutely everybody that reaches out to me, which I know
for a fact he sends American flag emojis to everybody.
Yeah, it's just 3 rock-ons,
bop, bop.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, yeah, send me a message if you have ideas or questions or whatever. But if you really have an idea and if you're passionate about something, you can send me a message and I'll give you this, give you an answer of what I think. But like, it all comes down to just try to do that idea. I mean, you just have to go for it. If you want to try to make something happen, that's the best advice I can give. And it's terrifying to do that. I know, but it's either you'll fall flat on your face and then you can do the next thing, or it'll work out swimmingly. So that's just.
The good thing about the hunting community is it's big enough to support you and small enough to care.
That's right.
It's a nice blend of, there's enough people that will come along, right? There's enough people that will come along to make it worth your while, but it's not so big that you'll never get any traction, You're not. So it's a good place to be. So, well, Sam, I need to get a refill of Modelo and continue my happy hour, but I'm going to let you go. What's your next? You got any duck hunts coming up here?
Actually got a pheasant hunt coming up next week. I get to go back to where I was born. I get to go back to Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I'm doing a hunt with the Aberdeen Pheasant Coalition, and they do a pretty cool thing where they say there's a farmer that is contemplating putting his land into a walk-in hunting area. Well, the Aberdeen Pheasant Coalition has gone to companies within the community and asked for donations to put into a pot, and then they'll go to those farmers and say, hey, if you put your land into walk-in, we'll sweeten the pot with an extra $2, $3, $4 an acre. And it's just enough to push those people over the top, and it brings more hunters to the community and more money into the system. And last year was the first year they did it, and they opened up 4,000 acres of public for pheasant hunting last year. So it's a pretty cool program. So we're going to go chase public land roosters around for a few days, and that's the next trip. And then I think after that, the next big trip is going to be January, Arizona coos deer.
Nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
I'm sorry, I've had to cancel a few trips because the old COVID's here, but I'm starting to think about coos deer as like something I might have to get into. So
Absolutely.
All right, dude. Well, thank you for everything as always, and check Sam out at Sam Soholt and be inspired to do something cool, bastards.
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks as always. All right, brother. That's it. That's all. Another episode in the books. Thank you to Ford of the Van Fossan, of the Maryland Van Fossans. And thank you to Sam Soholt of the Public Land Bus and of the Stamp It Forward Project. Make sure you go and follow him, as we were just talking about, at Sam Soholt. One of the best in the industry to do it. So you're going to see a lot of cool shit over there. And thank you to Luke and Lisa Reeves for being a part of the program, part of the cult, and getting married. Congratulations once again. As we get into the holiday season, I'm still feeling very warm about all the activities around the THC cult. Phil, you feeling good over there, bud?
Yes, I am. I love this time of year. Our house is all decked out. Got tree, got presents under the tree. There's garland everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I got several different candles just for this season.
Oh, all right.
Oh yeah.
I won't ask. We'll wait till our Christmas episode to talk about that.
Okay.
We don't want to blow that. A little suspense never hurt anybody.
You mean what candles does Phil have in his house? Wow, that's going to be a great segment.
Right into thcmedia.com. What scented candles does Phil have in his house? What do you think? A lot going on in the future here. I'm working on the best of 2020 right now. I feel like that's a bit of an ironic term anyway, because what is the best of a shitty year? But man, we got a lot of really cool stuff that we did this year. A lot of fun was had. Barry Gilbert was hugged. A lot of warmth in our hearts this holiday season. But before we go, we're going to give you guys a little back end, not so sharp moment. Play the jingle, Phil.
Work sharp, not so sharp moments. Sharp so you don't have to be. Season 2. Yeah.
All right, this one comes from Eric Glaze. And Eric Glaze says, tonight, as I finished tidying up the house and completing a few odd projects, I went out to the shop to retrieve a string trimmer and some parts that a friend had asked to borrow. I flipped on the lights and began gathering things up. This seems like a night before Christmas. This seems like a poem that he's written for us. 'Twas the night before, but we don't know what yet.
Yeah, let me wake me up when the dancing sugar plums come in.
That's right. The small 8-point buck that I had shot at the beginning of last week had been aging, hanging neck down in the garage. Noticing that the neighbor's dog must have gotten loose and been gnawing on the neck, I had hoisted it higher toward the rafters earlier in the week. The head was perched upright in a 5-gallon bucket nearby, with the neck side dangling inside the bucket. So you need to picture this, Phil. He has cut the head off the deer, put it in a bucket, and its body hung from the rafters.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like a stocking by the chimney with care.
With care.
Yep.
I grabbed the trimmer from off the wall and noticed the antlers move. I shook my head and rubbed my eyes and stared. Nothing. I looked back down at the trimmer. And then the antlers and long sunken eyes turned, seemingly to stare directly at me. I wasn't crazy, or was I? I watched as the antlers slowly rocked back and forth and heard the gentle scratching in the bucket. I watched for a minute or two until I realized that a cat must have snuck in for a little snack. Black tail, coarse hair, too coarse. Oh shit. Oh shit. For the next half hour or so, I tried to coax a skunk out of the bucket and out of the shop that housed a pile of prime 12-day age venison, an ATV, tractors, tools, bikes, my bow, everything important to me. I threw rocks and tossed chunks of scrap wood toward a large metal garbage can in the shop, hoping to draw him into my spotlight and into the reach of my 12-gauge. Several times he emerged from the bucket to check on the commotion, but he remained near his claim. Finally, I gave up, realized that he was unlikely to step into a clear path for me to shoot him without spooking him into spraying. I slowly and quietly grabbed the items I had previously dropped and looked back to the house. I had one more little piece to grab, and I killed the lights, which was a stingy and ultimately foolish move. What happens next, Phil? It didn't go great. Not a shocker. This is not so short moments. It never goes great. The oh-so-familiar stank stung my nostrils as a pang of defeat stung my pride. He raised his tail, and I tucked mine and retreated, as I should have in the beginning. I had been sprayed. At this point is when I thought, rest in peace to Gretcho Barks, the black-mouthed cur that patrolled these parts for the last 7 years. Gretcho Barks is the best dog name ever in the history of dog names. Rest in peace, Gretcho Barks. Anyway, he said she would have never let this stand. She averaged about 3 to 4 skunkings a year right up until she had to be put down this fall. Needless to say, we had several quarts of peroxide and boxes of baking soda on hand. Missing my dog and even missing our frequent deskunking dates, usually after midnight and well below freezing, as I try to explain why you don't mess with a skunk. Damage control and assessment time tomorrow morning to see how my deer fared. Time to sleep off this not-so-sharp moment. Play the jingle, Phil!
Work sharp, not so sharp moments, sharp so you don't have to be. Season 2! Yeah!
Thank you, Eric Glaze. That was a great one. It really was like 'twas the night before the skunking.
Yeah, that was good. At first I thought if it was going to be a ghost story. We were talking about those antlers moving around. I was like, oh
a tense moment.
The animal's coming back to life to seek revenge.
A tense moment. Yes.
Yeah, no. A couple months ago, our cat came back at 2 a.m, covered in the stank.
I'm gonna guess meatloaf because Kevin would never do such a thing.
Wow, you know my cat so well, and you've never met them. You're right. It was Meatloaf, who is incredibly long-haired, which made the ordeal,
of course,
even more fun. But it's a lot of fun to make those like 2 a.m. Walmart trips and to get by like some peroxide. Anyway, condolences. That sounds like a rough night.
Rest in peace, Gretcho Barks. Gretcho Barks is the best, just the best. Rest in peace to that black-mouthed cur. Well, Eric, you are going to get yourself a WorkSharp field sharpener from our friends at WorkSharp. Thank you for sponsoring this here program. Please support our sponsors and go do some commerce with them. Go follow them. Go watch their content. It really helps this show out and keeps us going into the future. And there's a little video of yours truly over there sharpening knives on their YouTube page currently. So if you want to be, I know I'm much better in the audio medium, I know, but if you want to see me sharpening a knife in my garage, have at it. I'm sure it'll be exciting at some level. Eric, enjoy that field sharpener, man, and watch out for zombie deer. Rest in peace, Gretcho Barks. All right, we will see you next week here on the Hunting Collective. Say bye, Phil.
Goodbye.
Too long, 'cause I can't go a week without doing wrong. Oh, without doing wrong.